The Odinson might be the god of thunder, but he's not the only one who's wielded the hammer Mjolnir in Marvel's history. Yes, while Thor's hammer might be just that, Thor's hammer, more characters than he'd care to admit have taken control of the object and the power it possesses. It's a trope comic book writers have utilized repeatedly over the years, and while some characters are indefinitely more worthy than others, one can't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, some of them shouldn't have been up to the task. Still, there's no denying the value of seeing someone other than the Odinson wielding his weapon. It's a massive feat to accomplish, and there's a reason why writers keep returning to that concept. People look great swinging around an ancient Nordic weapon, and when it's a hero or villain you don't expect, you begin to understand the gravity of their accomplishment. Before we get started, make sure to follow us by clicking on that like button below the video. It'll make you totally worthy and keep you up to date with our latest content. Let's go. Coming in at number 10, Wonder Woman. Now, although JLA and Avengers was a big crossover years in the making, but there wasn't a short series in the 90s that pitted classic characters from Marvel and DC against each other to see who would come out on top, a little bit like Celebrity Deathmatch for comics. Wonder Woman's opponent was X-Men Storm, though prior to the Rumble, she had a shot with Mjolnir. Thor lost his hammer in his own battle with DC's Captain Marvel, which is when Wonder Woman stumbled upon it. She picked it up easily, while remarking to herself about the subjectivity of worthiness, and got a serious jolt of power that definitely would have given her an edge over her opponent. However, that honor that made Wonder Woman so very worthy also made her too noble to fight with an obvious advantage, so she gave up the hammer in order to have a fair fight with Storm. Honor doesn't necessarily win a fight, though, and Storm ultimately took home the victory. Coming in at number 9, Deadpool. Anyone even halfway familiar with the wisecracking, fourth wall breaking mercenary Deadpool might raise an eyebrow to hear that he once got a hold of Thor's hammer. The entire ordeal was orchestrated by Loki, Thor's adopted brother and perennial thorn in his side, who manipulates Deadpool into stealing the hammer. Deadpool does so while Thor is on a heroic mission. Thor drops the hammer and Deadpool takes advantage of the relative chaos to locate it first. Deprived of the object that allows him to transform into his godlike form, Thor takes on the appearance of his human alter ego and Deadpool is suddenly sprouting a cape. He goes on to take the hammer along on the usual irreverent Deadpool misadventures, ordering fast food, playing festival games, and batting around some baseballs mid-game. However, there is a catch. Deadpool wasn't actually in possession of the real Mjolnir. The real one was still lying where Thor had dropped it, made invisible by Loki, who also created the false one that would give Deadpool the illusion of Thor's powers and, in the process, cause a lot of trouble for everyone. Still, it was fun while it lasted. Coming in at number 8, BetaRay Bill. Hailing from an alien race known as Corbinites, BetaRay Bill became a partially cyborg protector of his home planet after it was decimated by a demon from Thor's homeworld Asgard. On a mission to find a new place to live, Bill came into contact with Thor himself. They fought and Mjolnir got away from Thor, which is when Bill discovered he was able to pick it up. There was no trickery involved, it was purely because he was worthy and wanted to use it to protect his people. Odin recognized this and decided the fair way to resolve the situation would be for Bill and Thor to fight it out. Again. Bill won again, but that didn't mean he got to keep the hammer. Instead, as a pretty sweet consolation prize, Odin created a new hammer for him called Stormbreaker that Bill could wield himself. One interesting thing about Bill is that he was designed to be purposefully hideous, to throw audiences off until his inner nobility was revealed. At number 7, Conan the Barbarian. The Marvel What If series explores storylines that differ slightly from the accepted canon, diverging at important moments and delving into an alternate reality. One such story brought Thor into contact with Conan the Barbarian, a sword-wielding character who existed in a time between cavemen and ancient societies. Both characters lived in similarly fantastical settings and were considered great warriors, making a run-in between the two plausible. Thanks once again to Loki's troublemaking, Thor ended up in Conan's land Hyboria with a bad case of amnesia. Thor and Conan met and became fast friends thanks to shared interests. You know, like being super tall, muscular guys who like to battle. Mjolnir is lost during their adventures, and once Thor regains his memories, he's on a quest to find it. You know, he should really get like one of those trackers for it that people put on their car keys. Anyways, the hammer is found by the villain Tothamon, and in the fight to get it back, Thor causes them both to be struck by lightning. The villain dies, but despite being the god of thunder, so does Thor. He leaves Mjolnir to his new best friend Conan, who is able to use it to become a god. Whether this means Conan is worthy or not is up for debate. Perhaps having Thor's stamp of approval is enough. Coming in at number 6, Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff got her shot at Mjolnir in another What If issue, in which Thor is, once again, dead thanks to the catastrophic events of Ragnarok, an apocalypse based in Norse mythology that takes the lives of all the superpowered heroes. This leaves behind all the heroes without special abilities, and when it comes time to battle the Frost Giants, that's a problem. As everyone is getting overwhelmed, Natasha is sent out to retrieve the hammer. There are no tricks or loopholes involved in her being able to lift it, aside from the general alternate universe theme of the story. She is simply worthy of Mjolnir in that moment. Some have theorized that having the heart of a warrior is of great importance when utilizing Thor's hammer. It doesn't only require nobility and honor, but certain qualities that would be admirable to a society of Norse warrior gods. Natasha may have a morally gray background, but she is certainly a warrior. At number 5, we have Magneto. Now, Marvel's Ultimate Universe is an alternate world that is known for its darker and grittier take on familiar heroes. In that world, Magneto lost his children Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and the ensuing grief drove him to extreme actions. Magneto's electromagnetic powers gave him the ability to manipulate all kinds of metals, and it turned out that Mjolnir was no exception to Magneto's sphere of influence. Magneto wasn't actually able to lift the hammer, but he was able to manipulate the air around it to much the same effect. However, in the main Marvel universe, Magneto is unable to control Thor's hammer at all. The hammer is forged from a particular metal not native to Earth called Uru, and because it's not native to Earth, it's less able to be controlled by Magneto. And that doesn't exactly explain what's different about the Ultimate Universe, but hey, they're not comics if they don't have a couple of plot holes, right? At number 4, Superman. Now, DC's comics and Marvel have been planning a big crossover for a long time before it eventually came to fruition. The deal to produce a few crossover titles started negotiations in about 1979, but after a lot of push and pull, the project ended up being shelved for years. JLA and Avengers wasn't released until 2003. Luckily, it had a lot of flash and dramatics to make up for the wait. During the comics run, Superman got his hands not only on Thor's hammer, but also on Captain America's shield, making for a pretty iconic cover to the 4th issue. Superman was able to use Mjolnir once to deliver an important blow to the enemy, but later in the issue, when he tried to pick up the hammer to return it to Thor, he could no longer lift it. The series writer Kurt Busiek defined worthiness as not just being an inherent quality, but something that can change moment to moment. Sometimes it was tied to a specific action. Defeating the villain was a worthy goal. So Superman was worthy then, but just handing the hammer back doesn't count. At number 3, we have Jane Foster. Now, when the most recent Thor title featured a female iteration of the character on the cover, it grabbed a lot of media attention, especially when the creators behind it insisted the new mystery woman was Thor. She wasn't Lady Thor, she was the real deal. Even so, she wasn't the Thor everyone had come to know, and the discovery of her true identity was a driving force in the story. It was eventually revealed to be none other than Thor's on-again, off-again love interest, Jane Foster. The new Thor had taken over at a time when the original Thor, going by Odin when depowered, was no longer worthy of Mjolnir. While at first Odin attempts to take his hammer back, he comes to respect the abilities of Thor and gives her his blessing to continue on his steed. Odin had initially dismissed the idea that Jane might be the one wielding Mjolnir solely because he knew she was undergoing chemotherapy for breast cancer. But it turns out that while transformed, she was perfectly healthy, though when she wasn't, Jane's cancer was actually getting worse because of the toll transformation took on her body. Despite that, Jane Foster is still the current Thor and has perhaps proven herself the worthiest of all. Coming in at number 2, Captain America. Now, it probably isn't a surprise to learn that Captain America is worthy. I mean, considering his good heart and steadfast morals. Cap is all about honesty and doing what's right, but he's also not afraid to lead the charge into battle, making him fit the bill pretty perfectly when it comes to lifting Mjolnir, which he has done twice so far. Both times involve the Avengers in some serious danger, facing huge threats that knocked Thor out of commission and left Cap to pick up the slack. The first time, Cap merely returned the hammer to Thor, though it didn't work for Superman, but comic book loopholes don't always stick. Oh, and the second occasion involved Cap grabbing the hammer after his trademark shield had been shattered in a big brawl. He used it to rally the other Avengers to fight their enemy, the Serpent. Unfortunately, Cap didn't get a cool new cape out of the deal. And at number 1, Loki. After multiple entries dealing in Loki royally messing things up for his brother just out of a self-serving thirst for power, it may come as a surprise to learn he once accomplished his ultimate goal, to possess the power of Thor. Having been jealous of Thor since childhood, Loki has gone through just about every scheme and trick he could to get Mjolnir, or at least get it away from Thor. When an event called the Inversion caused Loki to become the god of heroism and truth instead of his usual mischief and evil, he becomes a new Avenger, and an inverted Thor becomes a new villain. Loki also finally becomes worthy of Mjolnir, which he discovers when he reaches for it during a battle with the newly belligerent Thor. However, the inversion spell is undone during the brawl, causing Loki to once again lose Mjolnir to his brother. Well, there you have it. These are just some of the characters that have lifted Thor's hammer. Who did we miss? Well, let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already liked our page, like and share our video. If you liked what you saw, check out more awesome content on our page. And as always, thanks for watching.